everybody? Thank you for tuning in to Source ADV. I'm Mark Jackson. Today's a very exciting day for me. It's been a long day in the making. We're going to get into how to install a Nomad ADV rally fairing dash conversion kit for this 2017 500EXC. It is a ton of parts. It is a kit. I stress that it is more of a kit than it is a bolt-on install, like swapping out your headlight for a Baja Squadron's light or something like that. It requires soldering. It requires a lot of Loctite. It's probably got anywhere from, oh boy, I don't know, 45 to 50 fasteners and another 10 or 15 parts and a lot of wiring you got to do. So this one's definitely not for the weak of heart, if that's the phrase, I don't know. But either way, I'm excited to take this bike and make it a little bit more distance friendly while keeping most of its functionality as still a single track bike here. You can pull off the fairings from the side and the actual windscreen itself too, and just kind of leave this light tower in the front. It can be run that way. There's a guy named Johnny Ringo who's on Instagram who's done a similar conversion on a similar bike, and he runs his without the fairing a fair amount, and it looks great. He also noted that a tip for installing all this stuff is make sure that as you're taking all of these parts off, and I'll go over all the parts we're going to take off and then in the kind of deconstruction phase coming up here, make sure that when you're taking all these parts off that you are labeling all your little connectors, your electrical connectors. At the end of the day, there's a lot of things that have to be moved around, and there's a lot of different parts that are going to be coming off and a lot of connectors disconnecting. So the big thing about this Nomad ADV light tower rally fairing combo, right? So we got this tower here that's going to go in the front and mount two big lights on it. The big pluses are threefold. One, we're going to end up with a new dash that has toggle switches to control accessories. Those will have to be wired in separately than the factory harness. So I'll share a wiring diagram of how I'm running power, fused power from the battery to these different switches. The first toggle on the dash, this one on the far left, is going to be a high-low beam connection, meaning that instead of like the factory bike, when you're running just a high beam or just a low beam, it only shoots one. When you flick this toggle up, when you throw out the high beam, it'll actually keep both lights on, which is awesome, so you get more lighting. This second toggle switch right here is going to be empty for right now, but that will be for the future. This one will be power being activated by a relay, so that it'll only come on when the rear tail light comes on. That will be for heated grips in the future. The third toggle right here, this one will also be on the key essentially through the rear tail light, and we'll explain why that is in a little bit later, because it's where you're going to want to put the relay closest to the battery, is by tapping into your rear tail light hot lead. But the third toggle will be for the GPS, and this little mount right here is actually going to have a little arm to hold the Garmin 600 series or 800 series GPS. I'm making the choice to have this fourth toggle be hot power. That will be hot at all times, and that's going to go to a 2-port USB charging port / voltmeter that you can run even when the bike is not running. I've got a electric jumper pack for this bike when I do adventures, so I'm not too concerned about it killing the battery, although I'm sure it'll happen once or twice out there. But times, and at least in this particular situation, that USB port, which I'll show you later, does have a voltmeter on it, so I can know, hey, I'm getting a little bit low in power, we should probably turn this off and stop charging the phones or whatever I'm doing that's stupid. So yeah, so that's the big plus. First, you get this nice dash, and the little KTM dash is going to go here, and the key gets relocated to here. So everything kind of opens up a lot more for the bike, and you have more of a proper, larger bike dash without having to add too much to the front of the bike. The second big win is going to be lighting. So I'm running the Dura lights. This is actually one of their lower cost options for lightings that Nomad offers. It's the Vision X Dura. It's still 950 lumens on this small low beam. It's a 4 LED low beam that'll be on top here. I chose this particular lighting because there is a quick harness that easily plugs into the factory KTM lighting harness and then plugs right into these lamps very easily. One of the things that I want to be able to do with this in the future is be able to pull it off if I ever want to do like a race with this bike. Right now, I'm looking at getting a secondary race bike, but maybe I want to do a race with this bike and it's a pretty rough race and I don't want to put the whole dash at risk and I want to throw this back on. So I chose the Vision X Dura Series lights because there is this nice quick connector that goes right into the factory lighting harness. That's one less thing I have to worry about disconnecting from hardwiring. The new high beam is 2100 raw lumens, and both of these things together draw way less than the factory headlight does. So you're actually decreasing your load on the electrical system and you're also increasing your lighting. That's the second huge plus from this whole kit. The final huge win from this kit is going to be the wind dampening that's going to happen from this guy right here. So essentially this should be probably somewhere about like that. I'm still trying to figure out where that's got to be to not get hit by handguards, but this is a KTM 550 rally fairing that comes with a kit. So this guy's going to go here and be hard mounted into that whole tower system, and then it's going to have little metal baffles right here. So essentially you're going to have so much more wind protection on this bike than that. This is a clear plastic. It's pretty soft, but supposed to be pretty pliable and pretty hard to break. I might still have it clear broad, like I had my truck, the front of the truck clear broad to protect against scratching. I'm going to talk to my buddy down at, I think it's Auto House in Boulder, Colorado here, and see if it makes sense to clear bra this thing to keep it from getting scratched. The clear bra plastic is a self-healing plastic. I just don't know if it'll work well on a plastic surface like this. So anyways, right, the first big win, you get a real dash, you get some toggles, you get to add some accessories in a very clean way. The second big win is going to be hugely increased lighting, and I'll do a comparison of the stock lighting versus this new and exponentially better lighting and what that looks like riding around at night. And then that third and final win is going to be the wind protection that comes from the new 450 rally fairing and those new side covers here. At the end of the day, I'm very excited to see how much better this is. I'm also a little pensive to see what it feels like to have some extra weight on the front of this bike. The kit in total weighs about 7.5 kilograms, right? So call it like 17 pounds, 18 pounds. I don't know, let's do some math here real quick. Let's just say it's 7.25 kilograms times 2.2, 15.95 pounds. So we're going to be putting 15.95 pounds on the front of this bike, adding 15.95 pounds, and probably only losing, my guess would be that this factory fairing here in light only weighs, maybe 1.5 pounds. So we're going to be pushing another 15 pounds in the front of this bike. So I'm curious to see what that's going to feel like as well. So we'll do a little bit of a review on that. The other thing I'll be doing a review on is the wind noise before and after. I did some filming on this bike at night, running around 45, 55 miles an hour, and with the audio running, so we can hopefully see what the wind noise is like before and after. So yeah, that's pretty much it for what's going to happen in this install, is going through this whole kit, putting it on there. I'll be going into some detail in the wiring. There is some soldering that has to happen on the stock regulator rectifier here. I'm not going to go into any detail on like how to solder. I'm going to show you that you have to remove this, and then you have to do some soldering and extend the stock wires. There are 6 wires that you need to extend because we actually have to move this regulator rectifier to the front of the tower versus where it is right now, because otherwise it'll get hit by your fork. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on how to solder. This is not a how to solder video. You're going to have to find somebody who's somewhat familiar with electrical systems. If you're not familiar with electrical systems, those are my two kind of caveats here. And make sure that you have some medium strength thread locker on hand. They stress that multiple times in the instructions. And I agree that, these things vibrate like hell. So, there's a lot of bolts there that are going to need some thread locker. So, cool. All right, so now it's time to tear down some stuff. Sorry, I gotta look at my phone here because of how many things I have to take off. So this is what we have to take off first. First, we need to remove the seat. We need to remove the ignition switch cover, both radiator side covers. I'm just gonna pull the whole tank and everything because I'm gonna be running the wires. Disconnect the battery, remove the headlight, the dash, and the indicators, which I already did. I removed the indicators in this install of the sick-ass racing. So I'm basically just gonna pull the dash here, and then you have to remove the regulator rectifier from the headstock and pull it out of the wiring loom and put that on your bench to be able to do the soldering. So that's the teardown. Let's get to it. Bah. Factory headlight off. I'll say that this factory headlight probably only weighs like, I don't know, 3/4 of a pound on a fat day. Soaking wet. Yeah, it's a really light light. That's redundant. It's a very light front headlight. So, yeah, I don't think we'll be losing any weight by getting rid of this. So. Let's get rid of that optimism. I'm just going to show you guys this. This is pretty funny. I mean, not funny, kind of terrifying actually. I understand what Johnny Ringo was talking about now. As you can see, this is a wire coming out of the dash unit up here, right? As you can see, it's purple and blue there, and then it goes into a harness that's blue and brown. That's not fun. Same thing goes here, right? I've got, what is that, red, brown, black, and it goes into brown, brown, lighter brown? Or orange? I don't know, right? So, totally getting why my buddy Johnny was saying label all these wires, because this is pretty bonkers. Like what we're dealing with here is not actually a problem with the Nomad Power kit. This is actually just kind of, for lack of better terms, poor wiring from KTM. You think the wires going into something and coming out of something would be the same color so you could match them very easily, but that's just not the case. So yeah, definitely take your time with labeling, guys. Let's keep going. Luckily, the one cool thing is it does look like KTM does a pretty good job of making sure that there's, like if there's two wires on one side, so like for instance, going into the dash, there are two 2-wire connections. The dash only has a female and a male, right? So they're not both females, so you can't accidentally swap them. But when it's with all these other little wires mixed up, it's just going to be really nice to have these all labeled nice and clean. So I'll just show you what this is kind of look like. It's really fun. New dash. The other cool thing, I guess it's not that cool. You're still gonna have to pull the dash out if you want to replace the battery. I might want to just replace this battery right now, honestly. Put the screws back in case I gotta reuse those. So those are self-tapping plastic screws, and it doesn't look like in all these nuts and bolts there's anything like that, so I just want to make sure that those do not walk away. So you will at some point be reusing the factory turn signal indicator light. will be going in one of these like that. You can choose right or left and then use a plug to cover up the other one. So I'm going to save this next to the dash too. There's a single wire that goes across the front of the frame. It is a ground wire that follows all the way down to a chassis ground down here. So I might disconnect that for now just so I can, just so I can pull that guy out of the way too and keep things separated right and left. Okay, let's take a look here. As you can see, everything's off the headstay here. There's nothing blocking it. We just have to pop these little plastic clips that hold these wires in and the clutch line in. As you can see, everything else is labeled and kind of separated to their respective sides so that the tower can actually mount to the frame of the bike. I think I've got to pull, the last step is pulling the wires out of this harness, which kind of sit right here like that before, and now it's going to be, everything's going to be contained within the back of the dash. So I'm going to pull all these things out of this little plastic harness here. So to remove the regulator rectifier, you got to follow it down the frame and then pull that connection. You're just going to want to lift up on that little tab right there and then pull out. And then you got to follow this wire across onto the frame. So you're going to want to come on the other side of the frame here, get that connection and disconnect it. And then we'll take this regulator rectifier here and we're going to put it on our bench and then do some soldering to extend these wires according to the instructions, I believe 15 centimeters. I will say I'm not super pumped about the ease of KTM wiring, that's for sure. It's definitely a kind of a rat's nest under there. One of the other things I wanted to note that is not clear from the instructions that you should know if you're going to buy this kit is that after I put the left side of the tower on, I realized that the tower mounting bolt, this bottom one right here on both sides, actually uses the hole that the charcoal evaporation canister for the emission system is currently using for its tubes, which means that you probably have to remove that charcoal canister, which means that you probably have to do an emissions delete as well. Let's just say it's not going to be an issue for me. I'm just going to have to pull the header pipe and slide that forward so that you can drop that evaporative charcoal canister thing down out of the frame rails right here. So that's what I gotta do right now. Let's see if we can do it. It's actually okay because I still haven't sealed up the back part of the header to the FMF can from when I installed that with high temp silicone. So that's an opportunity to do that, I guess. Okay, that is done. It is not fun. It requires a Dremel tool and some cutting and a vacuum and a lot of other stuff, and you have to remove all this stuff. So I'm gonna get this stuff back on the bike, and then we can actually start putting the tower itself onto the frame and see what that looks like, and then start figuring out how the hell to route all these wires. Thus far, I will say that this is a very difficult install. So I'm gonna jump here and just get all this stuff back on. I'm not filming this, just imagine that I'm working on this thing.